The third part of this chapter, we're going to talk about a term that you'll use in your final project, but it's important to know as marketers, that is brand personality. And so we're going to talk about a few cases in the next two videos, this one and next, about how sport is focusing on this idea of branding in a strategic way. So the first one, and I asked you to watch two commercials before you started watching this video. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and stop this video and go watch the two. They're posted on D2L. But I'm assuming that you have, and it's important that you do, but I'm assuming that you have, and so I'll continue on as so. So the first one is this idea of the Jeep commercial. This was a commercial, and as you can see in this commercial, there are several aspects that come from it. It talks about the American nature and the Jeep and how it's created for America. And the themes that you start to get from this commercial, you probably figured out, was this idea of being outdoorsy, tough, rugged, authentic. Those types of terms come to play. In the second video I showed you was actually one of my all-time favorite commercials in Super Bowls. There's been lots of great ones. We could watch videos of them all day. But this one I really particularly like because of the message that it's sending as it relates to this idea of brand personality. You could see that there's a prison and there's two guys who get out. It's funny as they go, but when they leave, you just notice a few things different about the gentleman in the commercial. One is both of them are seasoned, so to speak. One is probably significantly older than the other, yet they're both trying to get out of this prison, so to speak. Well, this prison's very luxurious, and anyway, there's several things to notice. First of all, that their age or the way they look are a lot different. The second is when they actually get out, they have two options. One, to jump into a car that's being chauffeured, and you can tell that I believe it's a Mercedes. And as you can remember, he says, "Don't worry, my father owned one." Basically saying, don't worry, this is the way it's always been. It'll be fine. Let's get into this car. And he basically said, no, I'm going to jump in this Audi, or Audi as you might call it, and then he drove away. And you can see in the screenshot I have on my screen, it says, "Escape the confines of old luxury." What is this saying about the brand that is Audi, and how it is different, or how it is differentiated from other brands such as Mercedes and BMW and other luxury cars? Well, he's basically saying that's the old way of luxury today, and the new luxury is Audi. And so the whole thing they're trying to get at is this idea of sophistication, this high class, which is the whole point and the target market of many Audi buyers. So the term I'm getting at is this thing called brand personality. It comes out of the literature known from the literature in psychology, and it's a term known as the Big Five human dimensions of personality. And so basically what they do is they take and you could arguably, now whether or not there's lots of arguments against this, but you could almost put everybody in one of a few boxes, in that they have certain characteristics or traits that are stronger than others. So you would say that an individual is sincere, or they may be an exciting person, or they're competent, or they may be seen as being sophisticated, or they may be seen as being a rugged person. But these are all personality traits. What we're saying in brand personality is that we're applying human characteristics or human personality characteristics to a brand, in that we're considering the brand the same way we would consider a person. And so what makes sport brands so unique? Part of it is the personality traits that come from being part of something that is social. I want to express my own personality, and I do that through sports. And so we see that consumers choose brands, oftentimes those that fit with their own personality. In the same way we look at sports sponsorship. Why would a sponsor want to be a fan of or want to be part of a sporting event or a league? Well, obviously they're trying to increase either awareness or sales or brand reach, the market share in which they have in a certain category, and they see consumers in sports as being part of that target market. However, what we've got to think about is they also try to attach themselves to brands that are very similar. In other words, they're not going to find a sport brand that, and the same is true for a sport brand, doesn't find a non-sport firm to be a sponsor that doesn't fit with their own personality traits. So in other words, you might not have Johnson & Johnson trying to advertise baby wipes or diapers during a UFC fight. There's a big personality difference there, and it may happen one day, I don't know. But the point is, those types of things and the sponsors that the UFC has might be completely different than that of baseball or youth league soccer, or you get the point. So I want to break down these 5 personality characteristics or dimensions and tell you kind of some traits that come from that, because it's important for you to know wherever you go in life and you become a marketer potentially for your organization, you have to know what your personality is, because that's what you're selling to consumers. Whether you're literally on the phone making sales calls or meeting people in person making sales, or your job is to simply create marketing messages or create a price or create a product, it all has to come back to what personality traits do you have, or what dimension of brand personality are you trying to display to consumers, because it helps you differentiate yourself from competitors. So the first one is competence. And so I'm going to give you basically an example of not only the words, the traits that go with it, but also an example of something I've seen and would give you an example for in sports. So the first one is competence. Somebody who would be competent, or a brand that would be considered competent, would be that is reliable, intelligent, and successful. And so generally, if you remember back in the product chapter 7, we talked about goods and services quality. One of the common characteristics between those, and the first letter in RATER, which is service quality, or evaluation of service quality, is reliability. And so we know that if a brand is reliable, if they're seen as being intelligent and successful, then people are going to have more trust in it. But it also shows that they're competent. So in this, that's the first personality trait. A good example of this would be maybe a partnership between what Nike has done with Apple, or other types of innovative technology brands that have worked with larger brands. So what Under Armour has done with MyFitnessPal and Map My Run, and those types of things where you can essentially try to sell your brand, but also a co-brand with that. Another example is excitement. So this is the second brand personality trait. Here, if you would say somebody who is exciting, they would probably be a daring person, a spirited. They may be imaginative. They may be a up-to-date, or, for lack of a better word, hip. But the point is, these people are have these certain personality traits. In the same way, a brand would be seen as being exciting if it was daring, spirited, imaginative, up-to-date. It's the alternative. And so the first thing that came to mind, or comes to mind when I think of exciting brands, many sport brands come to mind, because if you think about sports, that's part of the reason why people watch it, is because it's exciting and entertaining. But for me, I'm thinking alternative sports. I think of Burton Snowboards. Obviously, it's one as being daring. Obviously, snowboarding is an alternative type of snow sport. The more traditional would be skiing. So you're spirited, you're imaginative, and how people snowboard and the different tricks that they do, and that kind of thing. So I foresee an exciting brand. Could be many sport brands, but one of them being Burton Snowboards. Sophistication is another one. This is somebody who would be seen as being upper class or charming. A brand being sophisticated. I gave you the example when we came, when I showed you the commercial at the very beginning, with the Audi commercial. We're talking about being upper class, escaping the confines of old luxury. They were still trying to play on this idea of sophistication. That would be the brand personality. It's the same way that in my example I'm giving you is what Buick has done in golf, specifically with Tiger Woods, and some of the things that they've done through golf, and other trying to be seen as being a sophisticated brand. Another one is sincerity. Sincerity would be any type of person who is down to earth. They're honest, they're wholesome, they're a cheerful person. In the same way, a brand could be down to earth, honest, wholesome, and cheerful. I envision this would be more of our family-friendly type of sport brands. And so for me, I chose the Round Rock Express because that's where I worked. And many of the people that we tried to target were families. Again, we wanted to be seen as down to earth, honest, wholesome entertainment, and we were cheerful. You came and you had a good time, and you didn't have to worry about things such as in mixed martial arts. Well, I enjoy mixed martial arts, but probably not fit with being family friendly. And so some of those traits would probably not be seen as high. on their list. The last one is ruggedness, and this is essentially looking at somebody who is outdoorsy and tough. Outdoorsy and tough. And so when I think of a brand that's outdoorsy and tough, it's kind of hard to think about because outdoorsy, for one, may not be seen as really rugged, but another brand that's not outdoorsy could be seen as being rugged. And for example, I use the example of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or the UFC. The reason, while they're not outdoorsy, I would say that they're rated high on tough. And actually, it was a study that I completed and published that was about this brand personality idea with the UFC. Their two highest rated brand personality dimensions were being rugged, that was number one, and number two was exciting. And so sophistication and sincerity were the two lowest rated ones of those that watched UFC fights on a regular basis, including those that were not a regular UFC fight watcher. So the important thing to know here is these 5 personality characteristics and how you can apply it to your brand.